Anything else you want to do?
I don't think so.
Yeah. This song was a tricky one because it is really good already. Now, let's get into the mastering that we were kind of talking about doing. So, this guy right here is the waveform for the song that we're currently working on. Now I'm going to switch to some of these others. And the thing is, listening to Ian's song by itself sounds nice and full and sounds like a really healthy volume until you kind of compare it to these other guys. Right? There's that one, and that one. And you can actually see, like, these three are pretty blown out. Like, you can kind of see that you can't really, like, make out the individual waveforms until you zoom in, which is different when we compare it to Ian's track here. So the first thing that we would want to do is probably raise the volume here so that it looks a little more like that. And honestly, that might even do it. So the only thing that we need to do, if we do that, is understand that it's going to start clipping once we start pushing it up into this territory. So we just need to make sure to add a limiter to it. And I'm going to set the limiter ceiling to -1 just to keep it pretty well below 0. Oops. And so now we can push it, but if we push it too hard, it starts degrading the audio signal. So I would say we probably only want to push it maybe to like here. Because we got to keep in mind, this is still a pretty sparse moment in the song. So once we get to something like here, that degradation of the audio signal is going to be even worse, even if it sounded okay here at the start. So we could probably get away with like 5 dB. Now if we compare that to these references, there's still there's a certain quality to it that's still not quite there. But it's much closer.
Mm-hmm.
I would say, personally, what I think, one big thing that I think is different is the high end on Ian's is not quite there when we compare it to the others. So let's just, this is probably not the way that you would want to do it, where you just cargo cult it, like add whatever, what is this, like 3 dB of all of these frequencies. You probably wouldn't want to do it this way. I would probably recommend doing it with like a saturator on lots of individual tracks. I think a big part of how they got it mastered like this is probably because they started thinking about how they wanted it mastered while they were mixing. Because if you try to take a mix that is not quite strong enough and then you try to push it hard enough to make it sound like yeah, if you take a mix that's not quite strong enough and you just keep pushing it to try to get it to sound like a master like this, you'll probably find that it doesn't want to be handled that way. The degradation is serious. But I do think that works, to a certain extent. The big thing that I probably would do actually is a multi-band compressor. So what a multi-band compressor is, Ian actually has a few of them throughout the project here. It is a combination of an EQ and a compressor, is probably the best way to think about it. So it's like you have a compressor for the low end, a compressor for the mids, and a compressor for the highs. And even more than you think about a compressor just bringing frequencies down, but even more than that, what a multi-band compressor can do is bring the low volume parts of that frequency range up. Okay, so instead of like the way that we had it before, where we just basically were like, okay, everything at this point, just bring it up 5 dB. That can fall apart really quickly. But if we use a multi-band compressor, we have the opportunity to, I'm going to move myself here, make sure I'm not in the way when I zoom in. We have the opportunity to add that in and also tell it not to get above a certain point. Okay, so we added the frequencies in. Now the highs are 8 dB louder than they were before, but once it gets above a certain point, we can also tell it, just don't get that high. Like, if you're a high frequency, you can have 8 dB, just as long as you don't get above a certain point. And this really allows you to get really nitty-gritty with the manipulation for each range. So, right, you wouldn't want to do it exactly like that, but I'm just showing that you can add 24 dB to the high end, which you certainly wouldn't be able to do with just an EQ, because you're also telling it, just don't get above minus 30 dB. So you go from that to that. And you can do that with all of these frequency ranges. So with the lows, we could do that too. Right, we're pushing a little too hard, so now we say just don't get above minus 30 dB. Now you can also see I am adding 20 dB here, but we're also on the back end telling it to clamp down on it enough that we're also losing 20 dB. So you just got to keep that in mind. But that's a really cool thing about multi-band compression. Is that a good explanation? Did that make sense?
Yeah, I think so. Multi-band compression is like probably my favorite plugin to use, especially in the late mixing, mainly mastering phase. Because to me, when I hear this, before, if he toggles the multi-band compressor off, like, yeah, the song sounds good. But then if you toggle the multiband compressor on, it's like, holy shit, this song just came alive. Like, it lets you get a lot more surgical than just a regular EQ plugin, or, you know, layering 3 different EQ plugins and 3 different compressors.
Yeah, a chain of like 6 different plugins.
Yeah.
EQ compressor.
Yep.
So, yeah, I think for the before and after, we'll just do a little bit, because we really didn't change much. We really didn't change much throughout the song. I think this is going to be the biggest thing, is actually just adding a multi-band compressor to the master here. And we already saw that Ian used some multi-band compression. I don't remember quite where it was, but oh yeah, on the effects he did. So that's the suggestion, is to add multi-band compressor here on the master, and let's go ahead and do that. Let's kill all of these references. Right, you can just see like how you can hear how brilliant it becomes. And you know, that's the thing, is like when we were listening before, it sounded pretty bright already, but there was a lot of real estate, there was a lot of high end that we could and should add back in using this multi-band compressor. And you could even use this to effect. So this amount knob right here, down here on the multi-band compressor, this amount, we could automate that too. So like for instance on a riser, like right here, whereas before it sounded like this. Yeah, which is pretty drastic. Anything else?
I don't think so, man.
Yeah.
Ian did a really, really good job with this track.
Yeah, for 6 months of producing, I'm just blown away. Similar to like Anch, when we listen to some of his compositions, it's really surprising that he's still a teen and composing the kind of stuff that he's doing. And yeah, I mean, I think that's a lot of people in our group in their own way, is like, you know, it's surprising just how good it is when you go out and listen to people's stuff and really have an understanding of like, I think it just needs like this particular thing, and then you can totally like you can hear it's like 100% polished if it just has like a little bit of multi-band compression or something like that, you know. So probably wrap it there. All right, peace out everybody.
Bye guys.